You're listening to the 5 Minute Friday podcast episode of The Aligned Self. This is your host, Daniel J-N-O-V. Okay, 5 Minute Friday, a short and concise podcast episode of The Aligned Self designed to leave you with a question, an idea, a strategy, a tip, a hack, in order to give you greater access to your conscious awareness, evolving your conscious awareness, or give you greater mastery over your mind. Hello, friend, and welcome into this 5 Minute Friday. Today's episode actually marks a couple milestones on my journey in podcasting, as well as my journey in life. So today marks a year and a half on my podcast journey, and today is my birthday. As far as the podcast goes, I began on April 16th, 2021. The 6 months prior to that, I was the co-host of the Subconscious Mind Mastery podcast with Thomas Miller. Thomas was focusing more on his other podcast, The Fun Astrology with Thomas Miller, and he said this was the perfect vehicle for me to get my feet wet in podcasting. And there was the idea that maybe I would be with the Subconscious Mind Mastery for a long time. But after the first of the year in 2021, I became a little bit more restless and always having the feeling that it was somebody else's playground. And I had begun thinking about creating my own podcast. But it was in April when I had the intuitive hit after a couple conversations with Thomas that it was time for me to start my own podcast. And I couldn't be any happier with that decision. It was time for me to set off on my own. I had been thinking about doing a podcast for years. I began listening in 2010, and I held back. I didn't really know what the focus was going to be. I really didn't know what I was going to talk about or how comfortable I would be doing it on a regular basis. But, that is well behind me now because I really enjoy podcasting. And the fear that I had that I might run out of things to say, well, that's long gone as well. I had created a list of over 200 things that I could talk about, and since I began the podcast, I have rarely gone to that list. Just intuitively, things have come up. So even though I have 180 so episodes so far, I still have that list of 200. I have a lot more to talk about. How long will I be doing this? I'm not sure. As long as I enjoy it. Rather than say, I'll do it for the next 3 years, the next 5 years, I think I'll just take periodic assessments. Am I still having fun? Is this still enjoyable? Because frankly, I'm not doing you any service if I'm not enjoying it. And, the whole purpose of life, I think, is to enjoy, to live and be enjoy. And as this is a hallmark date or an anniversary event somewhat, it's a year and a half, I declared it an anniversary or hallmark position, mainly because it fell on my birthday. But in reviewing the progress of the podcast, I think I have more to do. I think I have more to say. And I thought that reaching 100,000 downloads was going to be like a really big deal. I set that as my hallmark, event, and it's here right now. We have 100,000 downloads, and I feel like I've only began to scratch the surface. So one thing that you could do to help me help other people is if you haven't yet written a review, and ideally, if you give me a 5-star review or 4-star, whatever you think I deserve, that's well appreciated. What I really like is the small comment, just a sentence or two about your experience with the podcast. That makes a world of difference. And it excites me to know how it's connecting with you. And since it's my birthday, I use my birthday as a time period of reflection, of self-reflection, for me to take a look at what are the projects that I'm currently involved in, what do I want to keep going or keep doing, and what do I want to change and shift in my life. And I'll share with you the 3 things that I'm going to shift in my life from this point forward. And I'll give you a little preview in, several, just a few episodes ahead. I'm going to be talking about how to identify the things that you want to create in your life. What do you want to manifest? Basically goal setting, but not necessarily in the goal setting in the traditional manner. So in that episode, I'll share with you how I review my life, the questions I ask myself. It'll be a cheat sheet, so it'll be available on that future podcast episode. Basically, how do you review your life to figure out where you are and where you want to go? So in doing that, I'll just give it to you briefly here. I look at the 12 areas of my life. And that's something like I look at my relationships, I look at my finances, I look at, my business, I look at my health and fitness. Now, health I consider different than fitness because they are not necessarily tied together. They can be mutually exclusive, having different goals, different assessments, different questions you ask inside of that. I also look at my spiritual life. Now, for me, my spiritual life is my life in general. Everything I do is tied to my spirituality. So you could say that my spirituality is the umbrella under which my life sits. And so everything is interwoven or tied together and reflects on a spiritual growth aspect. Now, I won't go into the other areas right now, but essentially you look at the 12 areas, you pick 3 in which you feel that could use some work. Maybe you've neglected, or there's something in one of those categories that if you were to focus on could dramatically shift your experience of life. Now, for me, it's in health and fitness. At 62, I was just kind of reflecting last night that I'm in the worst shape of my life. Now, fitness is one of those things that's relative. It's different for every person, but for me, my muscle tone isn't what I want. I'm probably carrying 20 pounds more than I need to. And my aerobic fitness level is not anywhere near where I want it. Now, you could say, hey, you're 62. Why don't you just, you're moving on in age. Why are you worrying about it so much? Well, I want to live another 40, 50 years. And from my perspective, how I currently am sitting in this moment, when I look in the mirror, it is not congruent with that future. It's not congruent with creating that reality. So as I was telling my wife this morning, what that presents to me is inspirational dissatisfaction. It's kind of like, I don't like this, and I'm not going to tolerate it anymore. And so I'm stacking the dissatisfaction in my mind with how things are in a way where it creates a threshold moment. Now, this is a way to utilize your brain to shift in a new direction. Basically, I'm stacking the pain to where it's unbearable, where it's distasteful, maybe even disgusting, because when we're disgusted by something, we move away from it. Now, the important distinction about this, though, inside of law of attraction, remember that we're always manifesting. And if I'm focusing on what I don't want, one might entertain the question, am I not just attracting more of what I don't want? Well, it's a fine line, because in creating what we don't want, we can actually create what we do want. Now, if I was to be forlorn and miserable and like, oh, I'm just so out of shape and I'm fat, fatter than I want to be, if I was to wallow in that, complain about that without engaging in any action to the contrary, then I would just create more. But what I'm looking at, it's contrast in my mind, a picture of what's possible, where I've been, or even, the shape that I can be that is far and beyond where I currently am. I'm using where I am now as a starting point, knowing that I'm going to move in a direction. I'm creating desire for a shift and change in my body. Now, since I'm in the public eye, or I'm a public coach, I'm going to document this process, and I'm going to document my thinking. I'm going to document how I'm going to shift it. So, I have some, and the reason I'm talking about it here is so I can be accountable for it too. And I've decided that I will document the process. I'll document my thinking. I'll document how I'm going to shift my habits so it can be modeled and utilized by you all that want to also partake on this journey of shifting your health, shifting your fitness. But right now, I think I'm only going to make this journey or this documentation available to those that are members of my vault, my wisdom vault. Not that there's not that there's not 1,000 other people on the planet that are doing this that you could follow. I'm just going to do it from my point of view, and hopefully, it'll document my process, and maybe somebody will find it inspirational. But in no way am I attempting to be a fitness guru. Even though once upon a time I was certified as an athletic trainer, it's been eons and I have not sought my recertification. But the one thing that I might offer that some others don't is access to the mental processes, the mental activity that's required or that will be utilized in order to shift this into a whole new direction. The other area that I'm going to be working on this next year is growing my business, growing the podcast, growing my presence in the marketplace so I can make a bigger difference. See, I've been at this for 30 years, and frankly, while my ego has been stroked from time to time, it's not been the driving force in moving me forward. I've been at this longer than a lot of people. I've seen a lot of coaches come and go, people that make a big splash in the pond, but they haven't gone the distance. My main focus has always been on accomplishing skills that I can utilize to shift people, change people faster, to transform to a whole new level of being. And frankly, when I look out in the marketplace and I see other coaches, with a mic in their hand or a platform in which they're talking to people and moving people forward as an expert in their field, yet I can look at them and I know that I'm more accomplished. I know that I have a grander or broader skill set that I can shift people faster and make a bigger difference. And the reason I haven't done that to the scale that it's possible is because I really haven't wanted to play in social media. I've been reticent to, holding back from doing that. And I realize that I'm doing people a disservice, that I can reach a greater number, help a greater number of people. And just recently, I had a conversation with a podcast listener, Nikki. She shared with me how she's listened to virtually every episode and that it has made a profound difference for her life. And when she relayed that to me, it brought tears to my eyes because that is why I'm doing what I'm doing, to make a difference. And if there's people out there that don't know about me and I'm holding back out of some, whether it's fear or wanting to play small, or I don't know exactly what it is yet. I'll tell you when I know. But I combine that with a little video I saw of Jordan Peterson on how he became tearful, on just the need for a message to get out in the marketplace, that people are hungry to hear, hungry to know how powerful you are, how amazing you are. And it would be selfish of me to hold back. And so again, I don't know if you're watching my mind work here, but again, I'm layering on the pain. I'm layering on the disgust, the dissatisfaction to move me in a new direction. Because if you can stack 3 to 5 painful experiences, painful ideas, then you can shift your way to a whole new way of being. You won't tolerate the old you. You won't tolerate the old situation anymore, because you have some evidence that, hey, it's just not working to the degree that you thought it was. The third area that I'm going to work on over the next year is my relationships, my friendships, and specifically my relationship with my wife. I love my wife. I cherish my wife. I know she loves me. We're happy together. But I'm actually entertaining the idea, could we be even happier? Could we be even more joyful? If I take 100% responsibility for how I'm showing up, can I be a better lover? Could I be a better partner? Could I be a better friend? If I were to declare whatever level we're currently at as not enough and raise the bar, I wonder just how better it could be. I wonder how more amazing, more fantastic, more expressive. And those details I probably won't share with you, although I may share my thinking around it. Because I'm a firm believer that, by and large, the greatest love stories that ever take place are never really talked about. But with that said, I just had a thought that, for me to talk about it, it might not be that fantastic. But perhaps in a year, I can have my wife talk about what shifts, what changes have taken place for her. Because that way it would be like the ultimate customer testimonial. So, this little review that I do at my birthday is my way of engaging in the epic adventure, using my life as the adventure. And I believe that defining who we are, our self-identity, is the most grand adventure that you can partake on. Because most people live by default. And unless you're self-reflective, unless you're looking at the different areas of your life and wondering, how much better could I do? Is there any improvement that I can make here? I wonder if maybe I'm just settling. If I were to take it out to the nth degree, just what might be possible? You see, when we ask that question, like how high can we go? How can I accomplish a 10-year plan in 6 months? Hey, I really didn't ask that question. So I need to develop a 10-year plan and then set about accomplishing that in the next year. Wouldn't that be fun? So how can you utilize this podcast episode for yourself? Begin looking at the different areas of your life, and you can identify without really knowing all the different areas, which areas are you least satisfied with? Which could use the most attention? And then entertain the idea. What goal could you create for yourself? What intention could you create for yourself in that area that would profoundly make a difference in that area? And if you're one of those rare individuals that feel like your life is pretty much perfect, there's nothing you'd really want to improve on, entertain the question, entertain the idea. If I was to really max it out, if I was to take it out to the nth degree and really challenge the possibilities, are there any areas that, maybe I might be settling in? Maybe I'm just tolerating a certain level of performance, a certain level of, satisfaction. And if after asking that question, you can still not come up with anything, ask your partner, from your perspective, is there anything that I can work on to become a better person, to become a better partner, a better lover? Is there anything that I occasionally do or continue to do on a regular basis that you consider maybe a bad habit? Get that outside perspective if you can't come up with anything on your own, and take it with a grain of salt. Take it as feedback, as an opportunity to become even better than you are today. Entertain these ideas, write them down, and then when we get to the episode on creating a worthy destination, then we can really dive deeper in how to create a plan of action to really fulfill on these, utilizing law of attraction, vibration, and alignment. So I know this was a 5-minute Friday, and I went long, but I'm indulging myself. It's my birthday. So until next time, this is your friend and host, Daniel Danovi, urging you to follow your bliss. Live your life from inner signals. Be inner directed as you engage in the epic adventure.